Hey everybody, it's Tommy DiMisa, your friend from the Vanguard Insurance Agency, the nonprofit sector connector, the host of Philanthropy in Focus live every Friday mornings on talkradio.nyc, where I interview leaders of nonprofit organizations. So this community is a big deal for us. The Nonprofit Executive Leadership Roundtable, we've been doing these meetings now, everybody in the room knows, for over 2.5 years or something like that. The first meeting was in my office in Melville, where I haven't been in over a year. I believe it's still there. I see the guys when we're on Zoom. I see my partners are there. I haven't been there. But we started out with like 6 people, and then we outgrew that conference room, and we sort of became, I referenced Guys and Dolls, where they had that underground craps game that would move around all around the city. So I felt like that was us, like that underground nonprofit roundtable that kept moving around, and we were hosted by many of our friends to go to their sites and use their conference room. So that was a lot of fun, and I will be letting people in throughout the meeting. So I felt like years ago, I felt this was really important to do, and the community that we've built and developed has proven out that this is an important thing to do for us to do each month. Each month we bring on a thought leader on a subject matter that is important to our nonprofit friends, and we have an interview, a conversation. It's certainly a bit of networking, because I can't let a meeting go without us doing some networking and connecting and finding out what other people are doing and working on. And then I will share this recording out so people can share with their friends and colleagues and people who this information would also be relevant to. So does anybody have any quick questions before we get started with the program? No? Okay, cool. So what we'll do is it's always my ambition when I have a room full of people to make sure that everyone else gets a bit of a commercial about what other people do and who they represent. And that just goes from my nature as a connector and a networker, that I feel what a miss it would be if all you people I'm staring at right now don't get to know who else is in the room. And there could have been so much opportunity for collaboration and synergy and referrals and things like that. So needless to say, we're going to do that. We're going to have everybody go around and do a quick, I'll say 30-second introduction. I'll be keeping time, but I just need people to stay on that point of just about 30-35 seconds. So really what I want to know is your name, your organization, your role in your organization. And if you want to share something new that's going on in the organization, I'll probably be somewhat liberal with the time based on the number of people in the room, but try to keep it as concise as possible, because I want to move to the next part of our meeting. So does anybody have any questions about introductions? Okay, cool. All right, so why don't we start with Bev Weinberg, who, before you go, Bev, I just want to talk to everybody about the power of the internet. Wow, that sounded really important, the power of the internet, Tommy D. But I put some things out there about nonprofits and the things I'm working on, and Bev found me on LinkedIn, and now Bev's going to be on the podcast. So actually this week for tomorrow. So Bev, why don't you introduce yourself, and then Deacon John DiBiase after Bev Weinberg.
Thanks, Tommy. Yeah, the power of LinkedIn. I'm so excited that brought me to you and brought me here. I'm Bev Weinberg, founder and executive director of Integrate for Good, and we empower people with diverse abilities, autism, developmental, intellectual disabilities, to share their talent. I'm in the Philadelphia area. We do that through community leadership opportunities, inclusive volunteerism with the for-profit sector, and meaningful employment. We have a great networking event. If you're getting interested in getting to know people down a little bit south of where you are, I'm going to pop some information in the chat, and we'd love to have you join us for our prizes and networking coming up this coming week. So great to be here. Thanks, Tommy. Good to see everyone.
Thanks, Bev. And somebody who is not a stranger to the IDD space, John DiBiase, followed by Marilyn Tickton, please.
Hi, guys. John DiBiase. I'm the former executive director of Anabic. I retired. I didn't get fired. If you look at my LinkedIn, it says retired but available. I sit on the board of Yolanda's group, Options for Community Living. It's a really great thing, and that's it. I'm doing some stuff with Horseability, who is a really great place. If you ever have a chance to get out there to look at Horseability, please take advantage of it. And it's really not that difficult to get to if you know where you're going.
Thanks for the dig, John. I appreciate
that.
No
problem,
Marilyn, and then Brandy Watson, please.
Good morning, everybody. Marilyn Tickton, Court Furniture. We're a for-profit company owned by Berkshire Hathaway. We do office and residential furniture, and my specialty is working with the nonprofits. We become partners with them and support their mission, and we offer a wonderful array of furniture at 50 to 75% off. Good to see everybody.
Thanks, Marilyn. So Brandy and then Jerry Wade.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brandy Watson. I am the president and CEO of the Hempstead Community Land Trust. I'm happy to be here because I've heard from the first two introductions, there are services that you guys offer, especially you, Tommy, that we could certainly utilize. Our mission is to provide home ownership opportunities for individuals that are low to moderate income. We are a grassroots organization, tripartite. Our board consists of residents that live in the village of Hempstead, also leaders that serve the village of Hempstead, religious and organizational members that serve the village of Hempstead. We feel this is a very important endeavor for us because we think that everyone deserves the opportunity to build wealth in these days. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. And I think I was listening to, Jerry, before you go, I think I was listening to Bloomberg Radio yesterday, and there was a woman who was being interviewed who had just written a book, and it was around the challenges of, or the inequality, so to speak, of white home purchasers versus people of color purchasing homes, and the history. I got to find out this book title for you because it's certainly something I'm going to look into. But thanks for being here. How did you find out about our group? Because we haven't met you before.
This is actually Ian Wilder.
Oh, you said Ian Wilder. That's right.
Yeah, Ian Wilder introduced us to this group, and I said, "Yep, I'll be up having my first cup of coffee before I have my fourth and fifth." And this is very perky. Thank you very much, guys.
I'm glad you're here.
I'm going to put our website and in the chat, so please take a look at our website because we need as much help as we can get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. So put that in the chat for sure. And then Jerry Wade, and then followed by Adele Viola, please.
Oh, good morning, everybody. I feel after all the banter we had this morning, you kind of get an idea of my sense of humor, but that's part of what I do. I'm actually not a comedian, but I'm a financial planner. I'm the owner founder of On Point Strategic Planning. I'm also the vice president of the board of SASE, Specialized Autism Support and Information out on Long Island. Financial planning, I work with families that have special needs. I also have non-for-profits actually educate their employees on the financial steps that they need to take. It's a value add. It doesn't cost a non-profit anything. It's just simply saying, hey, can you come in? I show you the topics we have, figure out what you'd like me to present to your employees. When it comes to helping out people with disabilities, we take away the what ifs and the things that they're not looking at, the parents aren't looking at, to try and make sure that when their child is off and doing the things that they want them to do, they can then do things that they want to do.
Thank you, Jerry. So Adele, and then Jen Capezza, please.
Good morning, everyone. Adele Viola. I am a senior cause entrepreneur with One Hope Wines. I help nonprofits raise money through the sale of wines, making it interesting and fun since we are an essential business. Through regular sales, coming to your house as a customer, we can do virtual events. I can help with corporate gifting, personalized gifting, which is coming out beautiful these days. Everybody's loving it, especially right now when you can't see the people that you love. You can send them a nice bottle with an engraved box. Anybody looking to raise money for a nonprofit, more than happy to help. And that's it. Happy to be here.
And I think, Adele, I think you shared with me, you have some interest in potentially getting involved with an organization,
Yes.
maybe board service or something like that, right?
Yes.
Very cool. Awesome. All right. So thanks, Adele. Jen, followed by Denise Waterhouse, please.
Actually, if I may, Adele is currently running a fundraiser for Ally Against Domestic Violence via her fabulous wine company.
There you
Just
go.
saying.
Right on. We set that up. I put the seats next to each other in the room
Yeah,
to make that happen.
Ally Against Domestic Violence. My name is Jennifer Capezza. I'm the director of development here. We have a 24-hour hotline that is and has been running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week throughout this whole crisis. We are here. We believe you, and you are not alone. It's if you Google anything related to LI or domestic violence, we come right up, and you'll see our logo. We are excited to say that we're actually going to have an in-person event this summer, early fall. Our Pause for a Cause raises money and awareness around the connection between domestic violence and animal abuse. Obviously, all that went virtual last year. We're actually going to be in person this year, and it's so much fun. And we are the only shelter, the only domestic violence shelter on Long Island that also accepts the family pet and has comprehensive services for the family pet. So that's just a little fun thing. You know, what we talk about, our numbers are up across the board. Obviously, we're working virtually with the courts, the police department, etc. So when in doubt, get them to us. We're here. We believe you. You are not alone. And stay tuned for information regarding our pet event, which will hopefully be a nice bright spot in the middle of all. I mean, you really can't. I mean, pit bulls and tutus. How do you go wrong?
Wait a minute. Pit bulls wearing tutus?
Oh yes.
Oh my God.
And a bumblebee costume last year.
All right.
2 years
Listen,
ago, bumblebee costume. Just saying.
I think I'd have to say I'm all in. Folks, just go on mute if you're not the speaker at that point, just so we can do that Zoom stuff. But Jen, I now I got to see the dogs with the tutus, and people moved around the room. Okay, we're still good. So that sounds like fun. All right, so from Jen to Denise, and after Denise, Jessica. So we will stay with the same brand for a couple of chats here.
Hi, good morning. I'm Denise Waterhouse. I'm with Options for Community Living. We provide housing and support services for Long Islanders with mental illness and other chronic illnesses. We serve residents of Nassau and Suffolk County, over 2,400 people each year, and happy to be here.
Thanks, Denise. Jessica, and then Linda Berman.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jessica Schwab. I'm the development specialist at Options for Community Living. I'm a member of Denise's department. Trying to think of something recent. We actually recently just expanded our department, so that's pretty exciting. We got it. We have a donor relations coordinator, so we have one more person. Our little department feels more like a department. So happy to see everybody.
Thanks, Jessica. Glad you're here, and thank you for the team to get me my incredible guest that I had on the program last week, who I will be. Let's just stay at Options. Yolanda, and then Linda.
Good morning. I'm Yolanda Urbano-Gross. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Options for Community Living. So what they just said, and I was in Tommy's attic last week. Bev, you're gonna have a ball. It's so much fun. Try to get the lyrics to his theme song ahead of time, so then you can sing along. Happy to be here. Happy to see everybody. Brandy, I happen to be in our Hempstead office today. We have a Hempstead office. And I'm also a member of the Hempstead Prevention Coalition. So do you know Thurston O'Neill in that group? Otherwise, he's amazing. You should connect with them. That's it. Have a great day. I'm happy to be here.
Yolanda, before you got on, I was talking to Brandy, and I said, "Do you know Thurston O'Neill? I just was introduced to him last week, and I spoke to him. He and I got on really well. It was a quick conversation, but we're gonna follow up." Yeah, I'm very, very, very cool. Thank you for that intro. So Linda Berman, and then Kumi is a new guest of ours. So Kumi, if you come off mute after Linda goes, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead, Linda.
Okay, thanks, Tommy. Wow, what a great group we have today. Wonderful organizations. And Bev, my brother lives in Philadelphia, and I'd love to connect you. I think he'd be very interested in Integrated for Good.
Oh, thank you. I'd love that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Linda Berman. I'm the Development and Engagement Manager at the Corporate Source. We're a nonprofit organization based in Garden City that creates employment opportunities for individuals with varying disabilities and provides services leading to independence and fulfillment. And the next thing we have going on is this year is our 25th anniversary since our founding in 1996. And Tommy, we're so thrilled you're going to have our CEO, Michael Kramer, on your Philanthropy in Focus podcast on May 14th. So we are really excited about that opportunity to share, what the Corporate Source is about in the community. So Michael's looking forward to joining you in the attic as well.
You know, who knew being locked in an attic for a year would have
To be
built
so
such,
sociable.
would have become so funny. Well, thank you, Linda, and I'm excited. And for those of you who don't know about the podcast, I mentioned up front, I interview executive leaders of organizations. If you have not scheduled with me to be on the show, your executive director, CEO, head honcho to get on my show, let's fix that, Jen Capezza. Like, let's fix that. I don't think we've done that. We haven't done. I'm just saying to you, let's get Long Island Against Domestic Violence on the show. Cool, thumbs up. The biggest challenge for me is I only do it once a week. I thought that was going to be difficult doing it once a week. Now I think I have to do it 3 times a week to catch up to all the people I want to spotlight. So Kumi,
Thank
sorry.
you, Tommy.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So Kumi, if you want to come off, just mute. If you want to turn on your camera, and then we'll go to Rick Davey. But Kumi, tell us how you found out about us. Oh, come on, you're on mute. Just let me unmute you. Hold on, we can't hear you. There you go.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having us.
Good morning.
I work with Christine, and Christine introduced me to your group. It's fantastic. And I work with the foundation, BK Style. My colleague is online, Rick, and he'll tell you more about what we do. We do the Fashion Week, Brooklyn Fashion Week, a lot of cool stuff. And we're very happy to be on your program. Rick.
Cool. Thanks for being here. We'll go right to Rick. This is perfect.
Thank you.
Rick, I'm going to unmute you too. It's saying ask to unmute. There we go.
Thank you so much. This is an amazing group. I wish I knew about this more sooner, but thanks to Christine, Deska, we are now here, and it's never too late. So I appreciate it. And I love the early conversation. What a good way to kick it off about shoes. Because we are all about fashion. We are in the fashion business. We are here to support emerging designers and emerging creators. And we work with several different organizations. We are supporting young kids in school who want to upstart their career in fashion. We're all about sustainability and saving the planet from the landfill, from people throwing away clothes and fast fashion. So our mission is to really do a lot of sustainable stuff. We have some swap meet. We have some educational stuff that we do with the kids about upcycling clothing. And we have an amazing event that we're doing with Kumi, who is our chair, Chant for Peace. So during this whole global fiasco with the pandemic and everything, we think we need a little bit of peace. So we are been working on this. The pandemic kind of threw a spin ball in it. So we are now regrouping and trying to figure out how we can make it global. We need a lot of support, but our hope is to have a large event in Times Square with everyone chanting and advocating for peace.
Rick, just one thing. Give me the name of the organization again.
It's BK Style Foundation. I'll text all the information into the chat room also.
BK Style Foundation. Awesome.
Yes.
Just one last, give me one last thing because I got to keep it moving here.
Yeah. We also work with a company called Denim Day NYC about domestic violence and sexual assault survivors. So I would definitely love to talk with Jen about how we can collaborate.
So awesome.
Thank you guys very much. Yeah.
So cool. Thanks, Rick. Thanks for being here. And thanks, Kumi.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
You're welcome, man. And I'll tell you, that's why, just that little piece there with Jen, that's why I make sure we do these introductions, because I'd cry if we didn't have these opportunities for people to connect on things that would really be an incredible ripple effect. So we'll go to Amy Fleischer, followed by Amy Zeslansky. Amy, you're on mute, Amy Fleischer. I don't know.
I was trying to get my mouse to cooperate. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Amy Fleischer. I am the Development Officer for Long Island Select Healthcare. We are a federally qualified health center, which means we treat the underserved and we turn no one away based on their ability to pay, based on their immigration status or their homelessness. We treat everybody. We have 21 specialties, so we're a one-stop shop, and we currently are doing vaccines, and we specialize in the IGD world. So there's so many other amazing nonprofits on this meeting that we can work with. Excited that we are planning our first in-person event for October. So we're going ahead and we're doing it. It's our 5-year anniversary, and we really are proud of what we've done, what we've been able to accomplish, and where we're going. So we're having people at a real place with real food, sitting down, talking to each other across the table, and we're keeping our fingers crossed. And that's us.
Sign me up, man. I need real.
And we're going to be on Tommy's podcast in June, so we're excited about that. So again, if you don't know about it, go find out about it. And yeah, we're thrilled that you're just a champion of all of us, Tommy.
Right on. Listen, I'm using what I have, which is my big mouth and my great hair to help drive the message of what you guys do. You know, you guys are on the front line. So thank you for what you do. And I will be at that event in October because I'm dying to get to an event. Amy. So Amy's in the warehouse. Cool. We're on location. We're on location with the Book Fairies.
Yeah. So Amy with the Book Fairies, founder of the Book Fairies, just going to give you a quick show of what we do. We distribute books to people in need. We have about 300 to 400 boxes that come into the warehouse every week. We distribute about 500 to 600,000 books to high need areas across Long Island and the 5 boroughs a year. We're at 2.7 million. And because of the pandemic, we definitely switched with our fundraising efforts. And our next event is going to be more of going with the virtual readathon that's going to be happening in May. So anybody who wants to get involved or read a book or participate, definitely reach out to the Book Fairies. Our goal is to be able to provide several 100,000 books to at-risk children.
Thank you. And one of our alumnus, I don't know the right way to say it. Amy was our speaker with Eileen last month, and some of you guys probably were here for that. If you were not here for that, and thank you for the tour of the warehouse. We haven't done that yet, so maybe that's a new thing on the roundtable meetings. But you know, if you haven't been out to the warehouse, when we're allowed to, we should come out to the warehouse, right? Right, Amy?
Yeah, have a meeting here. That would be awesome.
That's a good. Don't threaten me with a good time, man. We're all in. So that's very special. So I do have. There's a 334 number. I don't know if that's just somebody calling in on top of their video as well. But if you're a 334 phone number and you want to come off mute and introduce yourself, unless somebody just wants to tell me, no, Tommy, that's me. All right. So now we will move into so. There's the history behind this is Christine, Deska, and I put this meeting together and have obviously built a strong community of folks who care about each other, care about each other's organizations, and come together each month to have this meeting. Christine is unfortunately not going to make it to the meeting this morning, so you're stuck with me running the whole thing. So for better or for worse, this is the Tommy D show, I guess. So, but it's not, it's really the Tammy Severino show. And Tammy and I were talking early this morning, and I'm going to read Tammy's background and bio in a second, but I really think, and even with just about 18 of us here today, I think this could be even more conversational than what we typically do, where it's the interview style. And it's not that I don't have questions that I want Tammy to answer, but I really want to drive this conversation in a way where this can be totally open, totally where you guys are asking the questions, where what's important to your organizations. I thought about sending out a note last night and trying to have you guys send me what questions you would like to answer, but I just didn't have the time to get it done. And I figure in real time, it's better off if we just make this an open dialogue. I think, Tammy, that's what you'd like anyway, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So our conversation will be yes around grants, yes around different ways to approach fundraising. And I'll start off, I'm going to read Tammy's bio. I'm going to start off with, one or two things just to get the conversation going. But then I really would rather be in the facilitator role, because you guys are in the trenches every day. As I mentioned with Amy Fleischer there, you guys are the ones that are doing this. I don't write grants. I'm not in a development role. So you guys are. So if that's okay, does anybody, it's pretty cool with that? Anybody have questions about how we should do that? That works? Thumbs up. Cool. Thank you. Thumbs up. I like thumbs up. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump right in. I have Tammy's bio. I'm going to read it. I may not read all of it, but I'm going to
Please
read. It's very long, but I will read what I think is critical for you to know. So let me get started. Tammy Severino is a champion of small business and nonprofit organizations. Whether she's strategizing for the future or planning tactical efforts, businesses and charitable organizations call on Ms. Severino to reach their goals. She's an experienced leader and speaker in the areas of philanthropy, women's empowerment, and entrepreneurialism. Tammy works tirelessly to empower others to realize their dreams. And for her efforts in nonprofits and the business community, she has been recognized as a two-time winner of LIBN, that's Long Island Business News, Top 50 Women in Business, and was a recipient of the 2019 Angel Award from the Equity First Foundation, as well as a two-time recipient for the President's Award for Girl Scouts of Suffolk County. We're going to hear a lot about Girl Scouts as well, as among many, many other honors and distinctions. She is now some of you may or may not know, well, probably from the invitation for today's meeting, you know that she's the interim president and CEO of Girl Scouts of Suffolk County, which she took on that role in December of 2020. So just happening, first quarter of that. She's the president of RPC Development, which is a boutique consulting firm celebrating 10 years in business, specializing in strategy, development, market research, and planning for startup, small and medium-sized nonprofits, businesses, and associations. Tammy serves on the board of several organizations, including the Michael Magro Foundation, Terry Magro's organization. She also serves on Silver Heart Sanctuary, which is a home for abandoned homeless senior pets. Who was talking about pets before? That was Jen, right? So we got to talk about the pets. There's something there. Again, I can't stop myself. I just got to make connections. And then Mosaic Visions. She also serves as an advisor for Beth Buckheister's organization, our friend Beth, Career Day, Inc., the Morgan Center for Preschool for Children with Cancer, and she's an advisor for her daughter's Girl Scout troop. There's Girl Scouts again. We're going to hear a lot about Girl Scouts today, I imagine, the Girl Scout troop where they pursue their Silver Award. And you'll have to explain more of that to us about the awards there, and they received the Bronze Award for their past 2 years. So Tammy is married to her longtime love, Frederick. They have 3 children, reside here on Long Island in New York, and a beloved menagerie. That means a lot of animals, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good. And she believes that everything she does roots in love, and she gives in the love that she gives and gets from her family. Now, isn't that it? Isn't that what it's all about? It's certainly what this organization's about. Tammy, I'm psyched that you're here to have this conversation with us. And before we do anything, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you come to nonprofit?
Sure. Well, I had gotten out of school very early. I graduated school a couple of years early, and my father felt that I was going into law because I couldn't think of what else to do with myself. So he said, go get a job. You don't like it. We'll take you to law school. And I was miserable at the first job that I had, and I had applied for a few others. And one of them was with a nonprofit organization that I had been part of their youth group in high school, which is what got me my interview. At the time, one still looked in the New York Times on Sunday for jobs. And I had found this. I called up, and the CEO's secretary asked, well, do you know anything about us? And I said, well, yeah, I was the treasurer of my chapter in high school. Are you free, Thursday at 2 o'clock? And that's how I landed the interview. And when I was offered the job, it was 3 older gentlemen, the CEO, the president of the board, and the incoming president of the board. And they asked me to leave, and they talked, and I was brought back in. And my 20-year-old self was told that I know not a thing about fundraising, but that's mechanics and you can learn it. You have a mouth on you, and that just can't be taught. And that's how I landed in fundraising. So it is the truth. You have to embrace people. And there are different parts of your brain that you're using at any given time for the different components of fundraising. And grants is a very different animal than running a special event. And many grant writers are very quiet and reserved. I'm not one of those people. And so the other parts where I'm out and I'm networking or I'm publicly speaking, that's the counterbalance from my brain. I actually there isn't really a component to fundraising that I don't like, which is why I think I have I've made it a point to be involved in all different aspects, whether it's a capital campaign or direct mail or the events piece. But grant writing is a very different animal. And in terms of my career, I went to the point of being an executive director. And when I left that, I was in a relatively unhealthy situation. I left and my phone started to ring after the third day, where I gave myself 3 days to figure out what I want to be. And on the third day, the phone started ringing and people said, "Hey, I heard you left. And there's an organization that could use some assistance, but can't do a full-time thing yet. Would you be willing to work with them as a part-time director of development, as a grant writer, as the person running their event?" And I met with 5 organizations and all 5 signed me. And that's how RPC Development started, with the family laptop and a set of business cards from Vistaprint. And for which my printer, by the way, yelled at me that I didn't come to him first. And I have loved every minute of it. I have worked with some of the most remarkable people I have ever met. I found that by and large for my practice, that I like the smaller to mid-sized nonprofits where they are still so rooted and grounded in the mission. And that speaks to me. And I like that if someone brings me on to handle grants, but wants to then a few months in expand a different piece, I can still bring added value by working with them on that too. And that's just, to watch them grow and go from where they are today to where they envision themselves. And once they get to where they envision themselves, see them dream even bigger. That to me is the best part of what I do. Because then I know that they are able to stand on their own and they're able to do more of what their mission caused them to start the organization for in the first place. So I feel very blessed that I have the ability to, having worked from home, having been around my family, and able to balance, at the time my kids were little, so balancing the mom piece and the business piece, and be able to do them both well. Because at the time, I think for women especially, and the industry is very female dominated. You have that vision that work-life balance is a 50-50, and it's not. It might be, but it isn't every day. So it's learning that. And over time, it's given me the chance to really enjoy family moments and to do really good work. And so that combination has been a gift for me to have that as my career. I've now moved into the Girl Scout piece. Our CEO had retired. I was a member of the board. I have been for many years. I've had Girl Scouts in my life since I was a brownie back in Brooklyn. My girls have been Girl Scouts. My little one still is. My older one has aged out. She's in college. And I was very blessed to be asked to step in while the organization does some restructuring and positions itself to move forward. So I am serving as that interim director, interim CEO rather, and I'm loving every minute of it. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you for doing that and for giving us that background, Tammy, and really set the stage so we understand, aside from what I read, but what you're really all about and that passion you have for the sector. So I thought we'd start off with some high level questions, and
sure.
And honestly, gang, just jump in and ask questions. I can read down the questions I have, but I'd rather it really be authored by what you guys want to have a conversation about. So you can either just jump in and say, "Hey, Tommy," or "Hey, Tammy," and just ask your question or put it in the chat, however you feel comfortable doing it. But why don't we start with this? What's the biggest misconception that organizations may have about getting grants and a grant writing strategy?
Probably the idea that the letter that you would write to someone who is a donor, an individual donor, or even a corporate donor, that you can use that same document to make your case to a foundation. Grant writing is unlike other writing. It is devoid of vignettes. There is no artsy, flowy, creative writing piece that the foundations want. It's not what they're looking for. It's to say that grant writing is formulaic is slightly off, but not terribly off. There's the stating of the case. What is the problem? What is the case for, the need that's out there? And then what you're going to do to solve all or part of that need, what the cost of it's going to look like, and why your organization has the capacity or the expertise to make it happen and do so successfully. And then most critically, how are you going to sustain what you're doing when we pull our money? Because from the minute they hand you the check, what the thing that is foremost in a funder's mind is how are you going to let me walk away so that I can now provide a check over here? So if you are looking at, hey, we got $10,000 from this funder, that's great. We can do X amount with it, and we're going to count on that $10,000 every year. They're right away not going to be interested in what you are looking to do, because they want to know that they can move forward, that they can give others, that you're going to maximize, that it's not just keeping you stable. There are some grants out there for what they call financial sustainability. That's not just to keep you stable. That's to help you build. It's so that it can alleviate the burden so that you can get your financial footing. And maybe it's the hiring of a development officer. Maybe it's, shoring up certain other infrastructures of your business, because at the end of the day, that's what our nonprofits are. They are businesses. You have a tremendous social component, but you have to be fiscally sound. So they're looking to help you get to that place of being fiscally sound, but it means having a plan for how dollars are going to continue to come in so that they can now move on and help somebody else.
So just to kind of underscore that, if you could for us, is when I have to, as a grant writer, express that I have the capacities to sustain after this check. That's what you're saying. So that's important.
It is critical. They will ask you, how are you going to evaluate your success, and what are you going to do following this grant to ensure that your program can survive beyond the window of time that these dollars are intended to last. Most grants last for a year. You don't see as many 2 or 3 year grants, although you see those some from the government and from a few funders, but the vast majority are giving you for a year. So if you get this grant on April 15th, it expires April 14th of next year. Then you're going to write a report and tell them this is how we spent down the dollars. This is what we were able to do with all of those dollars that you gave us and why it was successful. But in that proposal that you sent them was also going to talk about how you were going to sustain that project following the departure of their dollars. They may choose to give you a second year, but you better not be banking on it.
Wow. Does anybody want to share an experience that they've had with that? We do have a question from Linda Berman, but does anybody want to jump on and have any insight? So I saw a lot of heads nodding. So there's definitely some, kind of come through the other side, I guess, with some of these challenges.
Well, it's important to consistently be looking for more funders. It's not a one and done. It's a pipeline, just like your network, just like your corporate, just like your individual connections. If we didn't need new money, we wouldn't be looking at new people in the business community. You wouldn't go to breakfast at a diner or meet someone for Starbucks or attend a networking group. But it's that constant need for meeting new people within the foundation space. It's very similar. You are consistently looking at new funders, whether it's for growing your overall capacity, growing a particular program that you have, developing a new program that's still within your mission space. So all of those things it's an ongoing commitment to keeping that pipeline alive.
That's great. Thank you. So we do have a question from Linda, so I want to get this right in because I think it's right in line with what we're talking about. What's your best advice to pursue funders who do not accept unsolicited grant applications?
Right, because Tommy, sometimes, when I'm doing grant research into corporate or family foundations who may support disability employment, you'll see a line about, we do not accept unsolicited applications. So what would be your best advice to still figure out a way to pursue that that organization for funding?
There's a short answer of don't, because you are in many cases knocking on a brick wall versus knocking on sheetrock. So the question of if you feel this is someone we have to have an alliance with, then there are some ways to access them. It's looking at everyone who's on their board, and then looking at all of your connections to find a connection into that board. So first presenting it to your board. Does anybody know anyone on this list? Does anyone know someone who knows someone on that list? Because if you can get that personal connection, you can find a way to the invitation. Without the invitation, you are not getting it. They will not accept a letter of inquiry that says, hey, we'd like to submit. They have very plainly put their guidelines out that they don't accept unsolicited. So the only way to get in with them is to get yourself invited. And the only way to do that is through their board or if they have a staff. So then it's a connection from you to them. If you can find a link, and sometimes those links are, it's a couple of bricks till you have a footpath and you can walk across it. But if you can find those links, then you can do that. There are some times that I'll put together research for a group that I'm working with, that I will have, these are all the funders that I found that we can submit to, whether it's through letter of inquiry as the additional step, or you can submit a proposal right off the top. And then I have a separate list. These are all the ones that you'd qualify for if they'd accept your proposal. Does anybody know anyone at this board? And I will include the names of everybody that's on the board at those foundations so that they can peruse it. And periodically I will get someone who says, hey, my brother-in-law golfs with that guy. Well, great. Maybe you want to join them on the next tea time and have a conversation. A couple of conversations may lead you to an invitation. It doesn't always happen that way. More times than not, no one knows anyone there and no one has access, and they have sort of favorite child status with the groups that they are inviting to apply. So in some cases, there really isn't going to be a way there. But if it's a particular foundation that has tremendous meaning to you for a potential alliance, then it's actually working through if they have any staff and who their board is to see if there is a potential connection.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you very much.
Yeah, really. Thank you, Tammy. And what I'm hearing the whole time is network your way in, right? Network your way in. I mean, there's Linda, this community is certainly a network of ours, and maybe somebody else who's receiving monies from that foundation might be somebody that you might know. And look, I think we're all connected. They used to say that thing, was it 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? Remember that thing back in the 80s, 90s? But now I think we're so intertwined and connected, and certainly with LinkedIn and other things, as long as you're pursuing somebody in the right way, through different channels, I think there's certainly effective ways. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about just some of our organizations, Tammy, that are here with us are smaller organizations, grassroots organizations, and some are significantly larger with larger budgets. That being said, some are more established and some are new. What I would still say, though, a grant strategy and kind of one of the main components that a nonprofit should consider as putting a strategy together is relevant to large, small, new, or old. So can you talk about that? Like if somebody's trying to implement a grant strategy, because like you said, there's so many different fundraising aspects. It could be the the gala, the capital campaign, right? When it just comes to grants, can you talk about the nuts and bolts of putting together a strategy around that?
Well, it starts with research. There are a number of different databases to work with. They by and large, the bigger ones have fees associated with them. So on the government side, you have grants.gov, which you can register for and you can access. It's not a particularly user-friendly site, but all the information is in there. So you can research by the division of the government that you're interested in. You can research by the topic. So you might be looking at developmental disabilities, you might be looking at cancer. So, and then drilling down from that. So within developmental disabilities, if you're looking at Down syndrome or autism, if you're in cancer and you're looking at breast cancer or women's cancers, things like that. So you can drill down. There's also GrantWatch. GrantWatch is going to give you by topic all the different opportunities that are out there, particularly for New York. And it will tell you if it's coming through the feds, if it's coming through the state, if it's coming through the state, but originates with the feds. If you're going to go for dollars through the government, you must be pre-qualified. This holds true for the feds, it holds true for the state, and it holds true if you're going for anything in New York City. Unfortunately, the state and the city do not have the same system. It would be nice if they did, but the city looked at what the state had put together and said, we can do better, and created their own convoluted system. So unfortunately, you do have to do that because it is a required field to enter the code that you have. And without that, you cannot submit. But that pre-qualification is a lot of the supporting documents that you would put in for. So and on every RFP the state drops, you will see the first 10, 15 pages are all about being pre-qualified. So that's that piece. But with GrantWatch, it's a not terribly expensive subscription, and they will show you all the different opportunities that drop every single week. You'll get an email, and it's everything that's out there that just dropped. So that's actually a very good one that I belong to. The Foundation Center is going to cover the family foundations, corporately based foundations. It's about 100 to 120,000 funders nationally. What they give by, what their giving ranges look like, what their areas of interest, what their giving strategies look like, meaning, will they give for capital if you're in the middle of a capital campaign and need money for the building itself? Will they give for capacity building? Will they give seed money? So for the organizations that are very young, under 2 years, that's when you can access seed money. Once you're 2 years old, you're pretty much past that point in the program. And then you're looking at capacity building dollars. There is still a category for general operating. After the economy got really wonky in 07, 08, there was an outcry that foundations stop giving strictly for program and give for general operating, because you can't create a new program if you can't keep the lights on. So there was an added push toward that, because at the time only about 5 to 6% of funds were being given for general operating. Now it's a little more, it's still not where it should be. So you'll see more organizations looking at building capacity, and that may have a portion of salaries. It may have your equipment, like your laptops, things that otherwise we might have considered for general operating, but they are you can make a case for them under capacity. There are program dollars, program development, sustaining programs, curriculum development. So all of those are strategies, and the Foundation Center will give you all of that. And the most important button in the entire product is the button that says exclude funders unwilling to accept unsolicited proposals. So all of those funders who will not accept your proposal without an invitation will be pulled out of that run for you. And then you'll get everybody else. And there's a profile on each one. You can extract it out to a PDF, and then you can do your research. it's one of the few things I actually kill a tree for because it's easier to read in person and be able to make notes on the side. But you can get those PDFs, print them out, and then be able to create a spreadsheet for yourself of all of your available options. So that's the big great white shark in the ocean, is the Foundation Center. There are some smaller ones. You have Grant Station, which is a good one. They also put out tips. They do surveys on the industry. They do a lot of other things aside from just the database. So it isn't a bad product, Grant Station. And then you have a lot of niche ones. So there's one that I get from a gentleman named Carlos, who puts together a weekly run of everything available that falls into the education space. And this year, he's actually expanded it to a lot of the COVID related grants. He breaks them down by state. He breaks them down by topic, and he emails every week. A very important one that won't cost you anything is called Philanthropy News Digest. It's an online product. They have jobs, they have grants, they have news. So what you do is you go into the foundation section and you check off the boxes for the areas that are relevant to your organization. And you would also check off, if you are only serving New York, then you would check off New York. If you are serving nationally, you might allow every proposal, call for proposal that is dropping anywhere in the country to come to you. I get an email every single day from Philanthropy News Digest Grants Alert. They send me everything that comes out relevant to the groups that I work with every single day. And then when you're there on the side, it will pop up saying you might be interested in, and it'll give you something else. You click in it, sometimes it's completely irrelevant, and sometimes it's spot on. So it's added research that you can get, and it's as soon as something drops. I got one for a client that dropped about 10 days ago. I knew about it then. My client didn't hear about it for 4 days later. I had told her, but 4 days later, she heard from the entity itself. So they had it as soon as it dropped. So that's an excellent one. But you can look up ones that are in your space. So, you know, there are some that are on women's issues there, and that can be anything from domestic violence to women's empowerment to equal pay issues. So you'll have to extract out the ones that speak to what your organization does, but there's a lot of really good stuff in there that that you can make use of. And what I like to do is, if I see something and I have a colleague that I know is in that space, I'll forward the link and say, hey, this just dropped. It might be of interest to you. So sharing that wealth is always a good thing. So that's you have really three major sections of going for grants. You have the government grants, you have the foundation grants, which I believe break into two. One is really family and community foundations, and one are the foundation sides of corporations. We all know that every bank has a foundation. Companies like Coca-Cola and Pepsi all have foundations. Most of your major corporations, Motorola, Verizon, AT&T. By the way, my least favorite application, and if anybody has an affiliation with Verizon, I apologize. I'm a Verizon girl on everything else I do, but that application is a beast. And what I recommend you do is, if you are looking at something, go in and look at the online application so you know what's ahead of you. Don't presume you're going to knock it out in a day. Some of those applications are really, really expansive, and it might take you 30 or 40 hours to do the one application. The government ones, absolutely. But even some of the corporate ones, they are very expansive, detailed applications, and the online applications may have restrictions for certain answers that are character, not word counts, character counts. And you have to see whether or not it's the number of characters with or without spaces. And you have to be able to take what you normally would say about what you do and shave it down without losing the essence of what you do so that it still sounds as powerful in fewer words. So there are three major categories, and you really have to not neglect any one of them. Some organizations find that what they do does not fit well into the government space. Okay, I respect that. There are a lot of organizations that feel that way, and the government applications can be very, very challenging. And in many cases, when you're getting funds from the government, it's a spend and reimburse, which means you have to have the dollars up front to spend. So if that's not the space you can exist in, then set those aside. There's plenty to work with between corporate and foundation and community-based foundations that you can be researching and applying to. And what I like to do for organizations is create a library that every single program you have has a narrative. It's the history of the organization is the history. You can write that, you can update it periodically. Now, every program, you want to be able to talk about the need, what you do, why you do it so well compared to anybody else, and what it costs for you to do it. And I like to give, some people are numbers oriented and some people are word oriented, different part of the brain, and you don't know who's going to be reading. So I present a budget with every grant, and within my narrative, I present a budget narrative. So I will actually say computer expense, 4 laptops, anticipated $4,000. 15% of the executive director's salary done for overseeing the program at yada yada rate equals and how much it is. And I will put all of that into a budget narrative. It's toward the end. And it's followed usually by the evaluatory piece and the sustainability piece. But it's an important thing because someone who doesn't like looking at the numbers will appreciate that budget narrative. A couple of really small things. Check the spelling of the name of the person you're sending it to. I have done grant reviewing for Autism Speaks and some other groups, and getting your name spelled wrong is not fun. We don't like getting our name spelled wrong on mail that we get, and if it's junk mail. If it's something that is really meaningful, spell the person's name right, spell check your document. And don't just use spell check, read through for the words that are actually spelled right, but it's not the right word in the sentence. If Grammar Check didn't pick it up, Grammarly is a great product, by the way. If you put that in, that'll pick up any of those mishaps. But you want to make sure that all your pages are there, number the pages at the bottom. So there are some small things that you want to do to make things as easy as possible. And within the profiles on the particular funder, you want to really follow what they've given you as their directions. If they say they want 8 copies of the proposal, send them 8 copies of the proposal. That means there's no one in the office who's going to make copies to give to the reviewing committee. So they're expecting you to send it that way. If it says you have to attach both the project budget and the organizational budget, send both. I send the 501c3 letter, a board list, the budget every single time, because those are basics, and that eliminates the possibility of them thinking, well, are you really a 501c3? We have to go check GuideStar or another entity. Here, you're showing them everything right from the start. And it just makes it, if you think of piles, right? Here's the initial pile and everybody gets reviewed. Are you going to land in the no? Are you going to stay in the for consideration as long as possible and eventually land in the yes pile? So the idea is to not land in the no and to consistently stay in the yes pile. That will just keep you in contention as long as possible. And if you were rejected and it was really a good product that you put forth, then considering following up and saying, is it possible for me to get the equivalent of an exit interview to find out why? I did that one time. I thought it was a great proposal. And it was the concept that the department had given me, thought was wonderful. It was a brand new foundation that New York State had put out. It was in the health space, and it was not a huge amount of money. It was 25,000, which is substantial, but not, not like, 250,000. So it was a piece of the program, not all of it. And I called up, and the gentleman said, our board had approved giving out 12 grants. We anticipated getting 50 proposals on the first run of this opportunity. We got 425. They were still only giving 12. The odds of staying in. So he said we had to say no to a lot of good proposals. It wasn't that someone did something wrong. We just had to really narrow down. And it was, somebody's opinion in the committee that this is the one we want to stay with, and this is one we'll pass on for the time being. And so sometimes it's not that you did anything wrong. It is that, a luck of the draw if you are one of that many versus one in a more reasonable pool. And sometimes it's timing. Right now, if you are putting in for COVID, if you're putting in for racial equality, racial justice or racial equality, if you're putting in for women's equity, those are hot buttons. So there are greater pots of money for those areas than ever before. I mean, COVID, not ever before, because it's a new thing, but money flooded in for that purpose. So if your program, if you can make the case, so you have to look at it, think of the person who's reviewing it. So why is your current program COVID related? Well, you can talk about the fact that perhaps the people that you're dealing with were a harder hit community. And so the need is greater than it ever was before. So you have to look at it like that. They have to be able to connect those dots really, really, without a hiccup, that they can see what you're doing is completely relevant to what they're giving for, and make that case.
So Tammy, again, I don't know if you can check. I don't know if you can't, you're probably not seeing the chat, but there's a lot of accolades.
Yeah, I saw there were a bunch of things, and I'm just trying to
there's a lot, but people are just so appreciative of your knowledge. And, Tammy, you're amazing. We're learning so much. Thank you. That's from Rick. And, I'm going to go back to this, but so glad I joined. Brandy, we're glad you joined as well, Brandy, because Brandy's learning a lot today too. So here's what I want to as Tammy was rattling off all those resources, I tried to keep up, and I put their websites in the chat as well. Somebody asked for Tammy's contact info. I put that in there. Denise tells us that, for instance, if your organization doesn't have the budget to pay for the foundation center, you can utilize the Middle Country Library in Centereach to access their system. We don't know about if you can get into the library right now with COVID, is what she goes on to tell us, but there's resources out there that you can get access on a lower cost. Jen, what is the character restrictions are literally, tell us about that, Jen. What does that mean? Just come off mute.
Sure. So I was laughing, Tammy, when you were talking.
I saw you.
Well, for two reasons. One is I have a similar experience in that being a director of development, in particular in a small organization, you wear many hats. And I love fundraising, and I love networking, and I love watching supporters' eyes light up when they realize the work that they're participating in. It's amazing. And then I have to write a grant. And it's like having like when I was in grad school, and Monday morning it's like having a paper due on Monday morning every week of your life. But the character restrictions, I have to say, I respect any and all foundations, giving priorities and guidelines and all that stuff. The character restrictions drives me bananas.
Yeah.
Because it so limits your ability to speak powerfully.
Yes.
And if I had to name one thing that was challenging, the most challenging about grant writing, it's that. I count characters. I mean, I can't tell you how many times myself, our former executive director, and our current executive director would be sitting there at my desk going, wait, 1, 2, 3, wait, where is that? You know what I mean? And like, so for what it's worth, if nothing, I mean, that I agree, that is so challenging.
As a tip, work in Word, because in Word you can go into review.
That's what
and
we do. Yeah.
And it will give you the characters with and without spaces. So whichever one you're working with on that funder. And that way you can, and you have to be a human thesaurus. You have to be able to come up with, you're like, oh, well, this is a powerful word, but I need one that's, that's 11 letters. And if I get it into 5,
exactly.
I have spaces. And because I'm trained as an editor, I can shave an answer down, but I have a tendency, what I like to do, because for me, adding is harder. So you have to know your own writing style. I write my narrative for an organization's program. And then when I'm working with it, I'm going to extract out the answer and shave it down and shave it down and shave it down, because editing down is easier for me than adding in, because I find that people, when they add in, have a tendency to just use a lot, instead of another thought, they have a tendency to add more adjectives. And that's not making your case stronger. You want to add more of what you do and then shave down, where maybe you have to bridge 2 sentences into one, to get your word count and your character count down. So that's challenging. It is. It very much is, which is why some of the funders where you can write a narrative and you're told to keep it into 5 pages, I'm thrilled for that.
It's sometimes is overwhelming for some, but for me, and what we've also done is that now that we've done a few of those with the very strict character restrictions, what I've done is I've saved a lot of those as sort of boilerplates, if you will. And then that way we have ones that we're happy with already, so that, the heavy lifting is.
Yeah, you don't have to recreate the wheel, which is very, very important. Save every single grant you send. And if it's online and it doesn't have a, send to print, and then save it as a PDF, then select all, copy it, drop it into Word. It's going to come out a little wonky, clean it up and save it. But that has value for you for down the road. Plan for doing a report. Most funders will ask either for a mid-year report, an end report, or both. Some don't want any report. Know your funder. Know that if a funder is looking to stay completely anonymous, or if they would prefer to have you basically wear it on a shirt that says, we got money from yada yada foundation, and give them what they want. If they want to remain anonymous, don't have a big article in your newsletter this month about it. If they look for that kind of applause because it's important for the corporate side, for their brand, give it to them, because you are hoping to maintain that relationship with them. If you have a funder who is willing to give you year over year for, let's say, 3 years, you want to ensure you get it for all 3 years. And that's part of it, because if they know that you're hearing them, if you're giving them what they're asking for, both in terms of the actual proposal and in terms of the relationship following that contribution. Make sure that you maintain a grant calendar. I literally pick a color and it's assigned for grant deadlines. I click it as an all-day event. I have a 1 week and a 2 week reminder, just in case I'm buried and I completely forget. But I know that my calendar is going to remind me that Citibank or Bethpage or Coca-Cola, whoever it is, that it's coming due. And that will prompt me to get into that system and make sure of how much I have to get done in that window of time.
Tammy, so I want to understand, especially even where, what Jen brings up, how much of this makes more sense for an organization to do this in-house and or train somebody who may not have this background or specialty versus engaging with an outsourced consulting firm to do, an outsourced grant writer? Can you speak to the pros and cons? And again, it's going to be based organization to organization, is going to vary, but just as general as it can be.
It's a very personal decision. And so part of it has to do with the mindset of the organization. Some organizations want everybody in-house, and that's perfectly valid. And some know that the skill set that they're working with amongst their team might be more suited to direct mail and events and a campaign or the one-on-ones, but not to the writing. And especially, because the writing is different and because you need to exact a concerted effort. If you're in the throes of planning your gala and a grant pops up that you have to now get done, allocating that time may be a challenge for that individual or the entire department, depending on how they're staffed. In which case, having someone who is dedicated to that has a benefit, whether it's hiring someone in-house who does all grants all the time, even if it's part-time, that they're doing it in a part-time capacity or a full-time capacity. But sometimes because of the cost associated with benefits and fringe and a space, that having it outside and the person coming in, most of my clients, either want to have, I'll do an update with them once a week, twice a month, or once a month, and they can see what's going out, and we discuss what the strategy is for the next month, that this, and this are coming up, and that's what's going out. Or I have these, we don't have anything that actually has a deadline. So 3 of the ones that take them on a rolling basis, we're going to get those out. So it varies based on really on the mindset of the department and the mindset of the CEO. As to whether or not you're comfortable having someone in or out, within or without. But the biggest challenge is, as Jen said, when you are in the throes of so many other things and then having to find that time, it's not the research, it's not getting the added, the supporting documentation pulled together, because you probably at some point have pulled it together. It's having to sit down and write. That's why having a grant library is a really phenomenal tool, because you have the nuts and bolts. If you're 60 to 70% of the way there on every single thing you could possibly ask for, then even when a board member comes to you and says, I have a great opportunity, but the deadline is on Friday, you can still put your best foot forward, because it's better to not apply than to send a terrible grant. The grant universe is reasonably small.
So I have some questions that are coming up in the chat, and I want to make sure I get to them. And I've promised everybody this year, this meeting will end at 9:55, so everybody can always have their 10 o'clock meetings. So we will definitely end at 9:55 today. So I think it was from Linda. I'm having trouble with chat for a sec. Yeah, so Linda says, if the grant amount is not listed on an application, how do we determine the amount to request? Very interesting question.
Okay, if you are operating within the foundation center, you're going to see their averages. They do it as a graph. So it'll show that, the vast majority of their grants were done in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. They gave a little bit more, and a little bit, over or under that were much smaller. So now you have an idea that's their sweet spot. Additionally, look at your budget. I had one group that I worked with many moons ago that said to me, we don't want you to apply for anything where you're sending for under 25,000. And I said, you can't do that. Your total budget is about $100,000 right now. They were hoping to double their budget over the course of the year using grants. And I said, right now, we're going to send in last year's budget and this year's current budget, and they're going to see you're asking for 25% of what you yielded over the whole year. No one's giving you that kind of money. It's too lopsided in terms of financial sustainability. I said, you are better off asking for lots of 5s and 10s and building your way up. And perhaps next year you can go for a 20 or a 25. And they insisted that I send, but we compromised half and half. All the 25 said no. Every grant that I secured for them came in a 5 or a 10 allocation. And that's just understanding how they're looking at your financials. You might very well be able to do wonderful things for your program with $25,000. But if they saw that your entire year you brought in 100, it's too lopsided. So look at your overall budget and realize that a massive percentage of that is not likely, not unless you have a pre-grant conversation with the funder where they realize you're about to execute something in large scale It's going to be separate and apart from the other stuff that you're doing. And they're going to give you $100,000 to launch the program. Okay, that's a different scenario because now they're expecting that number in your paperwork, but it's been arranged in advance.
Thank you. That was hugely helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. Thanks for always having such thoughtful questions. So we have another question from Ed Garfinkel. And Ed, if I don't do a good job with this question, feel free to come off mute and edit what I said. But Ed says, I presume there is no such thing as hiring a grant writer on a contingent basis, in essence, getting paid if they get the grant. So while we certainly know you can hire contingent, right? But however, I guess speak to compensation as well, if you want to talk about that too.
When you submit a grant, you are submitting a budget for that project. Let's use easy numbers. So let's say that you're asking for $100,000 for your project. And you tell them you're going to spend on this much staff and equipment and advertising and marketing and program supplies and all the traditional things that would be in your budget that at the bottom totals up to $100,000 that you've asked for in support. And they say, okay, we're going to give you that, but you have an arrangement with a grant writer to give them 10%. So now you just gave them $10,000 of your $100,000. How are you explaining that to the funder? You did not spend your dollars the way you specifically told the funder that you were going to do. So now when you write your report, you're a bit over a barrel because money walked out the door that's supposed to have been allocated to this program. And the funder has the right to ask for those dollars back. Always keep that in mind. It is a contract between your nonprofit and the foundation to execute on their behalf. They're creating impact by giving you the money. You've told them you're going to do it a certain way. If you're not doing it a certain way, it's a problem. So there are some grant writers that will work on a contingent basis. Theoretically, those dollars should be coming out of operating. So use that same scenario, $100,000. Now you have to tell the funder you spent your 100 a certain way. That means you have to have $10,000 sitting around to hand off to that fund, to that grant writer. That can be a challenge, particularly for smaller nonprofits that may not have that kind of liquidity for a consultant. So working on a contingent basis is also puts you over a barrel, because if you're working with a grant writer who has 2 clients in the same bucket of money, let's say both veterans types organizations, and you have a funder who you have access to, who am I going to give? The funder's going to say, well, I can only give to one of them. Which one should I give the money to? Well, you have an arrangement for 10% with group A, and with group B, you have an arrangement for 6%. You might tilt toward the person who's, the one who's paying you 10%. So it's in your best interest to not pay that way. Everything should be above board. Now let's look at it from the grant writer's perspective. You put in a good quality proposal. You cannot guarantee that a group is going to get it. Should they be paid nothing because the grant didn't work out? If you look at it from an honest day's work for an honest day's pay perspective, a grant writer is going to look to be paid. So they are not salesmen, they are producing a product. And if you do it the way I do, where it's a job for hire, whatever I create belongs to the organization afterwards. So they can use some of the information for their website or brochures, or modifying it with some fluffy stuff to send to a corporation or an individual donor. They can use it for whatever they like, or they can continue to send to other funders. So ideally, they're going to get more bang for their buck over time. But that's the idea that someone wouldn't get paid because the grant didn't work out is a very challenging way for someone to earn a living. So from so many perspectives, working with someone who's on a contingent basis is really is really not in the best interest of the nonprofit.
And it sounds like it doesn't seem comfortable for the grant writer either. But what I heard you say there too is, I, as a nonprofit, am purchasing a product from you called this grant application versus pay for performance. So I think in those terms, it kind of outlines it a little more clearly as well, because I pay you to do this thing, and now I own this thing, and then I present it to, you know, but I can also change that thing if I wanted to. But you know, that I would imagine that probably, it sounds like that's more comfortable for everybody, is in that, you know, hourly rate or product weight, you know, a wage for the deliverable, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And you know, I've had organizations that have had terrible success rates, and I have organizations that have had success rates that I'm blown away by. Because they're in the right space at the right time, and it's a good product, and I'm pitching something that the funders resonate with. So it does vary. I know what my overall rate is, and I know that I am comfortable that every single grant that I write is a strong quality grant.
So let me just bring it back for a second. So I just unmuted Ed because maybe there was more follow-up on that question, and then we're I'm gonna ask Brandy to come off mute and ask her question. Go ahead, Ed, please. Ed, you're off mute, but I don't hear you. All right, Ed, if you want to put it in the chat, because we're not hearing you. This is just the technology that we go through these days, right?
I can't unmute, but interesting answer. Thank you. I see it in the chat.
Perfect. All right. I didn't know if he did unmute now though. So, all right. So, Ed, if you have anything, phone problem. All right. Good answer. Thank you.
Okay.
No issue.
Somebody did ask here if Rick asked, if you pay the grant writer, how do you guarantee getting the grants? If you mean getting the actual product, well, it's no different than having work done in your home. You wouldn't pay the whole thing up front. I don't let anybody pay me the whole thing up front. If I'm working on a retainer, then it's on a monthly basis. If I am working on a project, I split the payment schedule so that everybody is comfortable. I would never take everything up front. I actually sent a check back to someone one time. I said, do not pay me the whole thing up front. I'm not comfortable with that. It's the only time anyone's ever done it, which is good. But I always have a schedule so that everybody knows, and the board that you're working with should feel more comfortable than knowing that all the dollars weren't expended without having something to show for it, short of an agreement. Here, that, you know, they know, they'll see drafts, they see the research, and then what I provide, and I think what most grant writers provide is copies of everything that's been submitted. I gather all of the supporting documentation. I gather all of the proposals that have gone out. So it's the budgets, it's the cover letter, it's the narrative. If I've sent out letters of inquiry, it's all of that. And I do it because I know there's still a lot of people who are very tactile and some people who are completely digital. I do it on a thumb drive and in a book. So they mirror each other. And that way it can also go to two separate people if it needs to.
Okay. Thank you for that answer and that clarity. Let's go to Brandy, because I do want to draw us to a close in a couple minutes, folks. So Brandy, I wasn't clear on how you wanted to ask this question, so please.
Well, actually, we're fairly new. Even though we've been incorporated for almost 12 years, we've only launched 2 years ago. Our operating budget is relatively low, and we have been passed over for a grant we recently applied for. My question is that we are preparing to submit multiple grant applications. I wanted to know from your expertise, is that appropriate to do?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, fine.
That's an all the eggs in one basket kind of a situation. You definitely want to have multiple in there. And you want to continue to send for it over the course of the year. If in fact, you have a program that will use the 100,000 mark again, it's 100,000 to execute this project, and 1,000 people are going to benefit. And you sent out enough requests and everybody said yes, and you yielded 125,000. So now you want to be able to yield a greater number of beneficiaries to the program. And when you do your reporting, you can say that we used your dollars to leverage and we're able to get from funder B, C, D, and E, for a total of, and instead of 1,000 people, in fact, we were able to help 1,400 people.
Right.
And that's a phenomenal scenario. because now you have shown that you were able to manage the dollars, manage the project, leverage the money from one to for several. So absolutely, that's a good thing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tammy. It's been so informative. I'm glad I'm here. I'll be back next month.
Thank you. We're glad you're here. And next month will be the 29th. I was just looking at. This will be consistently the 4th Thursday of each month. We get together at 8:15, a little networking, little chatting, little hey, how are you kind of stuff. And then we'll roll into our introductions. And then obviously we'll have another great thought leader. Does anybody have one final question for Tammy before we bring it to a close? All right, I do. So there's great. So I have one quick question. There's great people who are giving you great feedback in the chat. So I shared your contact info in there. Is there anything you want to close with, kind of your final words, your parting words on what to consider from a grant?
I would just, I look at development much like a retirement plan. IBM's a great stock, but you wouldn't put everything into IBM and expect that you can retire on that. You want a diversified portfolio. Your fundraising should be a diversified portfolio. So you should have events and you should have one-on-one solicitations. You should have direct mail and corporate campaigns and major gift campaigns, all of that. Don't neglect grants. Grants are the thing, like Jen said, it's like having a paper every Monday due, and it's the thing that is easiest to go. I'm going to get to that later. Don't neglect them because it is an important piece of your development puzzle. So, and it diversifies you. And if there is a part of the economy that takes a bit of a beating, having a more diversification helps you to buoy a little better and to not take a real hit. So it just balances what you have coming in from an array of revenue streams, and it can be really, really critical. So I just encourage you to, if stick your toe in the water. I'm not saying necessarily jump all the way in, but give it at least a start so that you can have it grow as a healthy and meaty part of what you do.
That's well done. Thank you very much, Tammy, for being here. We know how busy you are, so to invest this time with us is we're super grateful. I really mean that. I just you're getting great stuff here in the chat, so you have to check it out later. I saved the chat so we can look at it.
Thank you.
I put your contact. I put Tammy's contact information in the chat. You can reach out to her if you have follow-up questions. I know Rick said he needs to talk to you, and so just really cool stuff. Thank you all for being here. We do this every month, the 4th Thursday of the month. Tell your friends, if you're your nonprofit colleagues, bring them together. Let's continue to create this community and let the ripples go much, much further than anybody can imagine. So you know who I am. I'm Tommy DiMisa, the nonprofit sector connector, philanthropy, focus, Vanguard, insurance agency, all that stuff. I'll see you guys in a month. I'm sure I'll see you all over the place and other places anyway. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks, Tommy.
Bye.
Thanks, Tammy.